the winter at Valley Forge stands as a pivotal moment in American history, a crucible of sacrifice and perseverance that forged the nation's future. It was here, amidst the icy grip of a merciless winter, that George Washington's Continental Army faced its greatest test of resolve. The fate of a revolution hung in the balance, and the outcome would change the course of human history forever. In the sweltering summer of 1777, the Continental Army, led by George Washington, was engaged in a series of pivotal battles against the British forces. The army had suffered a string of defeats, including the loss of New York City and the fall of Philadelphia, which was then the largest city in the American colonies. As the autumn months approached, Washington's army found itself in a precarious position, with dwindling supplies, inadequate shelter, and a growing sense of desperation. The British Army, under the command of General William Howe, had launched a campaign to capture Philadelphia, and Washington's forces were struggling to resist the invasion. In September 1777, the Continental Army clashed with the British at the Battle of Brandywine, where they suffered a crushing defeat. The British then marched on Philadelphia, capturing the city on September 26, 1777. Washington's army retreated to the west bank of the Schuylkill River, where they regrouped and reassessed their strategy. As the winter months approached, Washington knew that his army needed a secure location to encamp and train for the upcoming campaign season. He chose Valley Forge, a small village located about 20 miles northwest of British-occupied Philadelphia, as the site for his army's winter quarters. The area offered a strategic advantage, with its proximity to Philadelphia and access to the Schuylkill River, which provided a natural barrier against British attacks. In December 1777, Washington's army began its march to Valley Forge, arriving on December 19, 1777. The soldiers were exhausted, hungry, and poorly equipped, with many lacking shoes, blankets, and warm clothing. The winter weather was harsh, with temperatures often dropping below freezing and snowstorms frequent. The army's logistics were in disarray, with inadequate supplies of food, fuel, and medicine. As the army settled into its new encampment, Washington faced numerous challenges in maintaining morale and discipline among his troops. The soldiers were plagued by disease, including smallpox, dysentery, and pneumonia, which spread rapidly through the crowded and unsanitary conditions. The lack of proper shelter, clothing, and nutrition further exacerbated the suffering, with many soldiers forced to endure the harsh winter weather without adequate protection. Despite these difficulties, Washington remained resolute in his determination to preserve the Continental Army and continue the fight for American independence. He recognized that the winter at Valley Forge would be a test of endurance, not just for his soldiers, but for the entire revolutionary movement. As the snow fell gently on the frozen landscape, Washington's army huddled together, waiting for the dawn of a new year and the promise of a brighter future. The arrival of Prussian military officer Friedrich Wilhelm von Steuben in February 1778 would mark a significant turning point in the army's fortunes. Von Steuben, who had previously served under Frederick the Great, brought much-needed expertise in drill and discipline to the Continental Army. He would play a crucial role in transforming the army into a cohesive and effective fighting force, capable of challenging the British on equal terms. As the winter deepened, Washington's army struggled to survive, with desertions and mutinies threatening to undermine the entire enterprise. The harsh conditions at Valley Forge pushed the soldiers to their limits, testing their resolve, their courage, and their commitment to the cause of American independence. Yet, even in the midst of such hardship, there were moments of hope and resilience, as the soldiers found ways to endure, to adapt, and to overcome the challenges that lay before them. One such moment came in late January 1778, when a group of soldiers from the New Jersey Brigade, led by Captain Joseph Bloomfield, managed to construct a makeshift hut using nothing but branches, mud, and straw. The hut, though primitive, provided a semblance of shelter and warmth for the soldiers and soon became a model for other units to follow. This small achievement was a testament to the resourcefulness and ingenuity of the Continental Army, and demonstrated that even in the most dire circumstances, the human spirit could find ways to persevere. Meanwhile, Washington's efforts to secure supplies and equipment for his army continued to bear fruit. In early February 1778, a convoy of wagons arrived at Valley Forge, carrying much-needed provisions, including food, clothing, and medical supplies. The arrival of these supplies was a welcome respite for the soldiers, who had been living on meager rations for months. Washington's Quartermaster General, Nathaniel Greene, played a crucial role in coordinating the delivery of these supplies, working tirelessly to ensure that the Army received the resources it needed to survive. He was shocked by the lack of organization and training among the soldiers, but quickly set to work implementing a rigorous program of drills, exercises, and inspections. Von Steuben's methods were strict and demanding, but they helped to transform the Army into a cohesive and effective fighting force, capable of challenging the British on equal terms. As von Steuben began his work, he was assisted by a small group of dedicated officers, including Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Hamilton and Captain Henry Knox. Together, they worked tirelessly to implement von Steuben's training program, often in the face of resistance from older, more traditional officers who were skeptical of the Prussians' methods. Despite these challenges, von Steuben's efforts began to bear fruit as the soldiers started to demonstrate improved discipline, cohesion, and combat effectiveness. The transformation of the Continental Army was not limited to its military capabilities alone. The winter at Valley Forge also saw a significant shift in the Army's social and cultural dynamics. As the soldiers struggled to survive, they began to form close bonds with one another, bonding over shared hardships and experiences. This sense of camaraderie was fostered by the shared struggles of the winter and helped to create a sense of unity and purpose among the soldiers. The Army's chaplains, including Reverend William Rogers, played an important role in promoting morale and spiritual well-being among the troops, often holding impromptu services and prayers in the midst of the snowy landscape. As the winter of 1778 dragged on, the Continental Army's transformation under von Steuben's guidance continued to gain momentum. The Prussian officers' emphasis on discipline and drill began to pay dividends as the soldiers' newfound cohesion and esprit de corps became increasingly evident. One notable example of this transformation was the improved performance of the Army's artillery units, which had previously been plagued by inefficiency and disorganization. Under the tutelage of Captain Henry Knox, the Continental Army's chief of artillery, the gunners began to demonstrate a marked improvement in their ability to deploy and maneuver their cannons, a development that would prove crucial in future battles. In late February 1778, a convoy of wagons arrived at Valley Forge, carrying a shipment of much-needed clothing, including warm coats, hats, and blankets. The arrival of these supplies was a welcome relief for the soldiers, many of whom had been forced to endure the harsh winter weather in threadbare and inadequate clothing. The distribution of these supplies was overseen by Washington's Quartermaster General, Nathaniel Greene, who worked tirelessly to ensure that the Army's logistical needs were met. As the weeks passed, the Continental Army's physical condition began to improve, thanks in large part to the efforts of the Army's medical staff, led by Dr. Albigence Waldo. The doctor's tireless work in establishing a system of hospitals and medical care helped to reduce the incidence of disease and injury among the soldiers, and his advocacy for improved sanitation and hygiene practices contributed significantly to the Army's overall health and well-being. One notable example of the medical staff's dedication was the establishment of a makeshift hospital in a nearby barn, where Dr. Waldo and his team worked around the clock to treat wounded and sick soldiers. The arrival of spring in 1778 brought with it a sense of renewed hope and optimism among the Continental Army's ranks. As the weather began to warm and the snow melted away, the soldiers emerged from their winter quarters, eager to test their newfound skills and training in battle. Washington, too, was anxious to take the fight to the British, and he began to make plans for a series of campaigns aimed at driving the enemy out of Philadelphia and securing a decisive victory for the Continental Army. In early March 1778, Washington ordered his troops to begin constructing a series of earthworks and fortifications around Valley Forge, designed to protect the Army from potential British attacks. The soldiers worked tirelessly to build these defenses, using their newfound skills in engineering and construction to create a formidable barrier against enemy forces. As the earthworks took shape, Washington's army began to take on a more confident and assertive tone, buoyed by their improved training and discipline. The sense of camaraderie and shared purpose that had developed over the winter months continued to grow as the soldiers looked forward to the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. In late March 1778, Washington received intelligence that the British were planning to abandon Philadelphia and march towards New York, a move that would require them to cross the Delaware River. Seizing this opportunity, Washington began to make plans for a series of maneuvers aimed at harassing and disrupting the British Army as they retreated. On May 20, 1778, Washington's army broke camp at Valley Forge and began to march towards Philadelphia, intent on intercepting the British and engaging them in battle. As they marched, they were met with a mixture of curiosity and hostility from the local population, many of whom had grown weary of the war and its disruptions. The Continental Army's newfound discipline and cohesion were put to the test as they navigated the complex web of allegiances and rivalries that characterized the Philadelphia countryside. On June 18, 1778, Washington's army arrived at the outskirts of Philadelphia, where they found that the British had indeed abandoned the city and were making their way towards New York. The Continental Army gave chase, pursuing the British across the Delaware River and into the Jerseys. On June 28, 1778, the two armies clashed at the Battle of Monmouth, a brutal and intense engagement that saw both sides suffer heavy casualties. The battle was marked by extreme heat and humidity, with temperatures soaring to over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The Continental Army's troops, many of whom were still recovering from the hardships of the winter, struggled to cope with the conditions, and the battle became a test of endurance as much as military prowess. Despite being outnumbered, Washington's army held its ground against the British, and the battle ended in a tactical draw. The aftermath of the Battle of Monmouth saw both armies regrouping and reassessing their strategies. The Continental Army had proven itself to be a formidable force, capable of standing up to the British in open battle. However, the cost had been high, with over 1,000 casualties suffered by both sides. As the summer of 1778 wore on, Washington's army continued to pursue the British, engaging them in a series of skirmishes and maneuvers that would ultimately culminate in the Battle of Newport in August 1778. The winter at Valley Forge had been a crucible, one that had tested the mettle of the Continental Army and forged it into a cohesive and effective fighting force. The Army's transformation under von Steuben's guidance had been nothing short of remarkable, and Washington's leadership had been instrumental in maintaining morale and discipline throughout the long and difficult winter. As the war entered its final phase, the Continental Army was poised to play a major role in shaping the outcome of the conflict, and the legacy of Valley Forge would endure as a testament to the power of perseverance and determination in the face of overwhelming adversity. In the months that followed, the Continental Army continued to evolve and grow, incorporating new recruits and refining its tactics. The arrival of French troops in July 1778 marked a significant turning point in the war, as the Continental Army gained a powerful ally and the British found themselves facing an increasingly formidable coalition. As the summer wore on, Washington's army played a key role in the Battle of Newport and later in the Hudson River Valley, where they worked to disrupt British supply lines and weaken their grip on the region. The consequences of the winter at Valley Forge were far-reaching, with the Continental Army emerging as a major force in the war. The British, who had once seen the colonies as a minor nuisance, now faced a powerful and determined enemy, one that would stop at nothing to secure its independence. The Continental Army's survival and ultimate triumph over the British marked a turning point in American history, paving the way for the birth of a new nation founded on the principles of liberty and democracy. The legacy of Valley Forge serves as a testament to the human spirit's capacity for resilience, adaptability, and courage in the face of uncertainty. Thank you for joining me throughout this historical journey. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that, to understand the present, we must first understand the past.